let's get straight into it anyway. We'll start with our predictions for the top six. So everybody had a top four, which had Spurs third and Chelsea fourth. And then the only difference with that was who was going to win the league. So Dan, Chloe, and Chris all said Liverpool would win. I favoured Man City, being the natural sort of pessimist. I mean, one of the headlines there is, obviously we very much overestimated Spurs. They were dreadful. There's actually a prediction from you later, Dan, that is along the overestimating Spurs lines as well. And Chelsea too. I mean, finishing 12th. But I suppose the more interesting thing is why we thought Liverpool would win the league. So I was listening back to the podcast, Dan, and your reasons were as follows. You said that Liverpool were better prepared to adapt to move into a number 9 system, because obviously both teams have done that. You said that Liverpool would benefit from the World Cup break, obviously with Mo Salah being someone, for example, who wasn't going to be there, Andy Robertson too. And also, I think this is the one that's probably aged the worst. The Community Shield suggested that Liverpool were in a better position than Man City. So, sort of, I mean, how do you reflect on those shouts and that reasoning now?
I stand by every single one of them. No, the halcyon days of that Community Shield game, the false hope that day out in the sun gave us at the King Power. I mean, the World Cup one, should have been sort of a salient point, and it should have made sense, I guess, at the time. I know Erling Haaland didn't go to the World Cup either. When you've got two key players such as Alisson, I was thinking of Firmino not going there. That's why I got that.
Yeah.
When you got Salah and Andy Robertson not going to such a major competition, and obviously Trent barely kicks a ball for England as well.
Yeah.
You do kind of think, okay, that bodes well for the season and what's to come afterwards. But in hindsight, the World Cup actually came at a bad time for us in terms of the season, because our one, if you can call it, patch of form prior to the run-in actually came just before the World Cup. And it felt like a bit of a reset for us at the time, but we just got worse, actually. We got much, much worse when we came back. So, yeah, I guess I like to think that, the optimism I had back then was well placed. Like I said, the Community Shield was definitely a performance that suggested we were ready for the fight. In terms of adapting to number 9, I think Nunez's struggles are something nobody could really have foreseen happening. I mean, he actually started the season pretty well, to be fair, but he's tailed off in a bad way towards the end. So, yeah, I'm not ashamed of myself, let's put it that way, but it was miles off.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it out there. Like, at the time, this is all benefits of hindsight stuff. Like, all these shouts kind of made sense at the time. So when it's a judgment-free zone for these predictions. I mean, I had a pretty sort of wild take on one of them as well, which I'll come to in a second. But I mean, it's interesting really to look at like preseason narratives, and there was so much talk last summer about the World Cup being like a game changer, and how much of effect did it really have? I mean, at the top of the league, maybe. I mean, Man City maybe benefited from it a little bit. They were struggling, but I suppose for Liverpool, we looked at it as maybe a chance to reset. Maybe they've come at a bad time with those victories. But again, like it's not really. Liverpool just kind of got worse. It wasn't that sort of that moment to kind of go again that we thought it might be, and it didn't really change the dynamics of the season all that much. So I suppose we'll find ourselves in a similar position come August this year, where we're like, these are going to be the big stories of the season. And then you just never really know how it's going to pan out. I had City to win the league. I said, I said City will have a squad with no weaknesses. Liverpool will have a weakness, which is the midfield. Not particularly insightful there. I mean, everyone was talking about that at the time. But the thing I said, which was quite bold, was if Liverpool keep Thiago fit for the whole season, they'll win the league. Was my declaration. In fairness, Thiago was not fit for the whole season, so maybe that was the one difference. Maybe that was it. And who knows? But maybe Liverpool get top 4 with Thiago, but certainly still nowhere near. So again, it just shows you that the way things change, really. Let's move it on then to the next set of predictions, and these are kind of more sort of general Premier League ones. So we kind of went through a lot of the individual awards. So Dan, we both had Salah to win the Golden Boot, ends up finishing 4th with 19 goals, which is a decent return. Obviously, Haaland in his own stratosphere with that. We had De Bruyne for most assists, so we actually got that one right. De Bruyne got 16 assists. I had Alisson to win the Golden Glove. Came second with 14. De Gea won that with 17. Dan, do you remember who you had to win the Golden Glove?
You're going to tell me Hugo Lloris.
It was Lloris, yeah.
I knew you were going to say that.
Which, again, at the time, we thought we had Spurs third in the table. So, fair enough. Conte being the manager and all that. But yeah, he only got 7 clean sheets in the end, which was 13. So it's one of them. We just look back and you grimace and you think, hang on, no, at the time,
yeah,
it was maybe fair enough. Player of the year hasn't been announced yet, but probably going to be Haaland as well. We had De Bruyne. I had De Bruyne. You had Salah for that one. The best signing one is worth touching on too. I kind of cheated. I had 3 players.
Okay.
I said Gabriel Jesus, Yves Bissouma, Sven Botman. 2 of those have gone all right. One of them, I mean, Bissouma's, he's just barely kicked the ball all season. You had Fabio Carvalho.
Oh, God.
And for a few weeks, that looked inspired because 7.5 million, I think, all told for him. Great start to the club career, but then he just went off a cliff, didn't he? And now there's talk about him going as well. So how do you reflect on that one?
Yeah, that's a bad one on my behalf, to be honest. It's a really poor prediction. But like you say, again, another player who actually, shows signs, and I think he scores against Bournemouth in the 9-0. Obviously gets the winner in the Newcastle game. He shows early signs of promise, and you think, okay. And then it's such a strange situation, the Carvalho one, because Jurgen Klopp continues to sing his praises, despite he took him off in the Man City game after he scored, and he literally never seen him again up until right at the end of the season. And yet every time Klopp speaks about him, it's like, oh no, he's brilliant in training. He keeps impressing me. It's such a weird scenario for him to find himself in. And he have all his Instagram stuff as well the other day, which is not a great look for me. Listen, I think for the price and the fact we obviously missed out on him in the January made me suggest that we did have a bit of a star in our hands. I still believe he's going to be a very talented footballer. Whether that's at Liverpool or not, I'm not quite sure right now.
Yeah, that's very much up in the air at the moment. You did redeem yourself with the next couple of shouts, though. Gianluca Scamacca is worth signing. I think is definitely one that you can stand by.
I'm sick of that.
I had to look at his stats. Only started 11 Premier League games, injury. A few games where he's not even come on as a sub at all, so he's well down the pecking order. I don't know if you saw Michael Antonio speaking about him the other day, which was unbelievable to hear someone say that about a player who's sort of a current teammate. 8 goals, 27 games, all competitions. So quite poor at return for sort of a big striker. And you also had Scott Parker as the first manager sacked. Obviously, Liverpool saw to that.
Was he the first?
Yeah, he was. I'm confident that he was anyway.
Very early. After the 9-0, like you say. So it was very
9-0, which
late August.
I think the 4th. Was it the 4th or 3rd? It was the 4th game of the season, wasn't it? Yeah.
Pretty early. Yeah.
About 27th of August, that game, I think. 27th, 28th. So, and as we sort of said at the time, the signs were there because he was complaining about the Bournemouth squad a lot. And I think he said after the 9-0, we're just not equipped to stay up. And they were like, yeah, we can't have that energy. I had Ralph Hasenhüttl, who was one of the first 3, I think. And to be fair, we all did quite well on these. The only other one, just kind of looking to Chloe and Chris's predictions on this that stood out. Chloe struggled with best signing as well in the end, said Raheem Sterling at Chelsea, which again, at the time, it was like proven Premier League goal scorer going in. Could he kind of elevate them? But yeah, only 6 goals and 28 for Sterling. And to be fair, nobody saw Chelsea coming 12th, did they? So it's just one of them that we've had a few times in this podcast, I think. Relegated teams, we had Southampton, Fulham and Bournemouth. Dan, I think we both owe Fulham and Bournemouth an apology.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a lot of people do, to be fair. But Southampton, I think, was a decent shout from us. Chloe said Leeds would go down, which was correct. Chris had Forest along with Southampton and Bournemouth. So we were all, we've all done all right on that one, I think. I mean, at least we're getting one of the teams, but Fulham and Bournemouth, obviously credit to them, the big overachievers. And that just leaves us with the hot takes. Dan, your hot take was that Harvey Elliott would start more games than Keita and Henderson, which almost came true. Naby Keita with 3. So he was, this is in the Premier League alone, by the way, so he was a long way off. Elliott 18, Henderson 23. So if I throw that forward to next season, do you reckon Elliott will start more games now? Do you reckon we'll reach that sort of tipping point with those players at the opposite ends of their careers?
If anything, that's more interesting heading into this next season than it was at the start of the season just gone, because in one breath, I want to say yes, I'd almost double down on that prediction because, I mean, obviously, like you say, the age is definitely a factor, but I see Jordan Henderson's role sort of shift into the Milner role a little bit more. It's not sort of anything new. Everyone's had the same conversations, I'm sure. I see him becoming Milner, but I don't know whether that means Elliott will start loads more. Because obviously, as we know, we're looking for 2/3 midfielders. You'd imagine one of them will be sort of the attacking right-sided 8, which obviously where we see Harvey Elliott most of the time. So much depends on the transfer market on that. If you were, say for instance, we go with this squad plus McAllister plus more of the defensive-minded midfielder, then yes, I'd say so. But if we sign the third one, which will probably be the right-sided 8, like I say, then I think Elliott will find himself as part of the rotation again and not really starting those. I think, to cut it short, what I'm trying to say is I think the most naturally sort of adept player we have for that right-sided 8 role in our new system is Harvey Elliott now. I think he's better than Thiago at it. Thiago's a magician of a footballer. Don't think that role suits him necessarily. I think he's better than Henderson at it just because of what he offers. So I think as we are speaking now, Harvey Elliott will definitely start more games during Henderson next season. But if we go and sign sort of the finished article, then that'd change.
Yeah, I think I just don't think Henderson can, deliver that higher level as an attacker midfielder. To be honest, I just don't think it's his skill set. And I agree with you that in terms of that new system, as a result of that, then Elliott looks like the better fit. My hot take was one that I'm actually fairly happy with in the sense that it wasn't too far off. I said Salah would get 20 assists in all competitions. I mean, a big theme of this podcast was that Darwin Núñez was going to really drive people's numbers up. I mean, I think Chloe had Trent as the player of the year, did she? Or
most
somebody
assists.
did.
Most assists, maybe.
Oh, it was Chris. It was Chris who had Trent as a potential player of the year winner because of linking up with Núñez, and I don't think he assisted him in the end till January. So again, it really shows you, I suppose, how big a feature Darwin Núñez was in our optimism. People will debate how much he was in kind of Liverpool's struggles since, I suppose. So Salah ended up getting 16 assists. I mean, just an absolute beacon of consistency. So not miles off with that. Chloe said Liverpool won't compete on 4 fronts like they did on last season, which fair enough, completely right. Not sure on the heat of the take with that one. I think it was a little bit
0 fronts. It would have been a hotter take.
Yeah, 0 fronts as it turned out, sadly.
Yeah.
With every cup competition at the second hurdle, we ended up going out. And then Chris said, again, I should have rejected this at the time. Chris said Robbo and Trent would have more assists than Diaz. I mean, they've been Liverpool's top assist providers for a while. Again, he's correct. That. He is correct.
Of course, he's correct.
But Diaz missed 6 months.
Mohamed Salah will start a game of football. That's mine for next year. Done.
Yeah, you know what? We'll be revising the criteria a bit for what constitutes a hot take and what doesn't. But anyway, so that's the predictions dealt with.